Hi everyone, welcome to Gentle Yoga with me, Jennifer. I'm the owner of Auburn Yoga and Pilates. So tonight we are going to do a hip focused workout. I hope that I have the camera angle a little bit better. I tried to put it landscape and I also tried to get it so that it wouldn't cut my head off when I'm standing up. Those of you who watched my first video heard me say that I didn't adjust the camera angle correctly, and unfortunately I couldn't stand up. But that's okay, we did a seated practice. Okay, so let's get started. So we're going to start off in a comfortable seated position, whatever that is for you. So some of you may want to sit on a folded blanket or a folded towel to lift your hips up. Sometimes it makes it a little easier to lengthen your spine and relax your hip flexors. So you want to find a place that you can really lift up through the top of your head. If you're really feeling tension in your hips or your knees, you can, again, take a folded blanket or a pillow, like a throw pillow, and you can stuff it under your knees for a little bit of support. So we're going to start off focusing on our breath. Big inhale through the nose, all the air you can fit. And then exhaling slowly out your mouth. And again, inhaling through your nose, all the air you can fit. Exhaling slowly out your mouth. And then one more time, inhaling through your nose, all the air you can fit. Exhaling slowly out your mouth. Now, try to replicate that breath, simply breathing through your nose. So if you can, big inhale through the nose, big exhale through your nose. So your nose has those natural filters that filter the air for you and also helps you to take in just the right amount of air. But please do make sure that your breath is really deep. You want the breath to move both your belly and your chest, not just your chest. Especially important to breathe in these times where people may be feeling a little bit more anxious than usual. You may accidentally lapse into using just a chest breath. And that alone can really impact the way that you feel. So really trying to be conscious of your breath, especially if you feel any moments of nervousness or anxiety, check in with that breath. And now, trying to think about something that you would like to manifest into your day. What do you really need today? Is it to set some time to relax? Is it maybe the motivation to do a special project? Or is it just a little bit of self-care? Maybe a warm bath? Whatever it is, just trying to picture yourself experiencing it. So close your eyes and create a visual of you experiencing it. So for instance, You see yourself as relaxed. You see yourself taking that warm bath. You see yourself working on that special project or whatever it is that you decided that you wanted to manifest. And then try to not only see it, try to feel it. Try to hear it. Are there any certain sounds associated with where you are or what you're doing? Smell it if maybe you put a scented bath bomb in your tub. Imagine that you can really smell it. And just working to make that visual more and more realistic. And staying here for 2 minutes. Seeing if you can keep focused breathing and keep yourself in that place of what you want to manifest. So the law of attraction is all about getting your mind to believe it, because sometimes your mind can't differentiate between what you're trying to manifest and what is actually occurring in the 3D, making it more likely that you'll be able to manifest something good. So 2 minutes here. And deepening your breath, beginning to bring yourself back into the room. Switching the cross of your legs and starting to circle your spine. And let's make some big circles tonight. Probably need to move those energy centers that travel up and down your spine, those chakras. And then switching the direction when you feel like it's right. You want to move your spine between flexion and extension. So flexion is when you're bringing your sternum closer to your pelvis. And then extension is when you're moving that sternum far away from your pelvis, lengthening that spine. And then holding it in the center, and then just walking your hands forward. So some of you will walk your hands forward a little. Some of you will walk your hands forward quite a bit more. Some of you may be able to drop your torso relatively close to the floor. You want to come to a place where you feel a little bit of a stretch through your outer hip and thigh. Hopefully feeling a little bit more sensation in the leg that is closest to the front of your room. Inhale, exhale, relax just a little bit further into the stretch. Now you don't want to overdo, but you do want to try to find a place where you do feel like you're getting some benefit. And then walking those hands up, switching the cross of the leg, and walking forward again. Again, inhaling, trying to create space. And then exhale, relax into that space. And walking those hands up. Now extending those legs, and then I'm going to mirror you. So I'll say right, but I'm going to do my left. So taking that right leg and crossing it over. Now this may be where you stay. If you have really tight hips, sitting here will give you a sensation. For some of you, you're going to need to ramp it up a little. And you're going to lean back ever so slightly, but lift your heart. Make sure that you don't collapse into the pose. And I'll spin myself sideways too in a moment so you can see the profile. And then from here, you're going to take the foot of that left leg and bring it closer to your hips. So, a side view, you're here. Now, some of you are really going to be able to fold yourself up almost like an accordion. I happen to have tight hips, so this is about where I go. I'm feeling a lot of sensation. You want to keep the inside foot, your right foot, flexed. You want to pull that pinky toe back towards your knee to help protect that knee. You shouldn't feel any knee discomfort. If you do, let up on it a little. You want to feel mostly sensation through that right hip. And then lengthening that leg and trying the other side. So basically taking that left leg in. You want to make sure, or you're trying to get that little flat spot near your ankle to rest just over your knee. You don't want to push into your knee, and you want to make sure that you're not letting your foot sickle like this, because this overstretches the ankle and it's the most sprained part of your body, so we want to try to protect that. So this is often called a seated pigeon pose. Pigeon is one of those very popular poses in yoga, and we will be doing a couple different varieties today. This is the first one. We'll also do a standing pigeon and a traditional pigeon. So again, once you're here, you may find that you're able to fold up a little bit more. You're able to bring your heart center a little closer to your legs. You're able to bring that heel a little closer to your hips. Flex that foot, don't forget, pull that pinky toe in toward the knee. and transitioning into an all fours position. If you're on a hard surface and you have sensitive knees, please put a towel or a blanket underneath your knees. So all fours position. Now, let your pelvis spill toward the floor. Letting your front body stretch. So feel your abdominals lengthen, feel your chest open. Ever so slightly pull the heads of your shoulders back. And then root down through your knuckles, through your fingertips, and switch it. Expand that back body. And then move between cat and cow. So yes, we're trying to wake up those energy centers in the back, but we're trying just to keep the muscles in the back strong and especially flexible here. So be mindful of what you're doing. Maybe find some back muscles that you haven't paid any attention to in a little while. And then holding a neutral spine, bringing those big toe mounds together and letting those hips fall back towards your heels into child's pose. Feel free to extend those arms nice and long for an extended child's pose, or drape your arms by your side in more of a traditional child's pose, or use a block or your hands to prop up your head. If you have existing knee issues, feel free to put a blanket at your knee crease. And really letting your hips be heavy. So your objective here is to let your sitting bones, those bones that you often feel when you sit on especially maybe a hard chair, you want to let them fall toward the heels of your feet. You're trying to stretch that sacral area at your lower back, that little flat spot that tends to be fairly cement-like. And then coming up. And now you have some choices. You can come into puppy dog. If you do, you keep your hips right over your knees and you walk your arms forward. Focus on lengthening your arms, lengthening your spine. Those of you who might like to can take those wrists slightly ahead of your shoulders, curl those toes under, lift those knees and hips, and press into downward facing. Now, the disadvantage with this platform is normally in class, I'll walk around and give people some individual pointers. But we'll do our best to give, verbal help until we can be back together again. So you want your feet hip distance apart. You don't want a large space between your feet. They are not out to the edges of your mat. Similarly, your wrists are shoulder distance apart. You want to prioritize lengthening the spine and the arms. So bend the knees if you need to, but if you're able to, lengthen those legs. And then shifting forward into either a plank or the knee down variation of it if you want a little gentler option. And then slowly lowering down to your mat. Taking those hands down by your side, you want your fingertips pointing back towards your feet. Now, some people like to keep their arms straight. Some people like to tent their hands and their elbows. You can do either. But first, pull the shoulders back away from the floor. And maybe this is all you're doing today. If your back is feeling tight, you're probably going to stay here. If you're able to, keep your thighs parallel to each other and lift your sternum. So using that back body for this pose, but you don't want to just primarily use your glutes. Sometimes people just squeeze those glutes and they forget about the rest of the back working. The rest of the back should be working. And then coming down, resting your head over to one side. Letting those palms face upward, just in a relaxed position. So basically a little work for the back body, now a little rest for the back body. And as you probably suspected, we'll do one more. We'll go back to a little bit of work. So pinning those elbows back behind those shoulders, lifting up. So you decide, how much can you lift your sternum? Engaging your hamstrings, your inner thighs, and your actual back muscles. Coming down, resting. Take those hands by those side ribs, lift back up to an all fours position. Now, you may want to use blocks. If you don't have blocks, any sturdy box, like a shoe box would work, or maybe, you have a carton of something that you could use. They're not necessary, just sometimes people find them helpful. If you have issues stepping your foot forward in this limited space that you have here, lifting yourself up is going to give you more space and make it a little bit easier. Either way, we're going to step that right foot forward. So please pad the back knee if you have any existing knee issues. As far as your front knee, you want your front knee aligned over your ankle so that it's well supported. Walk those hands up. On this one, we're going to lengthen that hip flexor. So I'll just spin around on this one. So what you want to do is let your sacrum stay vertical. So try not to tip your hips back like this. Try to keep your hips neutral. And it's almost like if this was your pelvis, you would try to be traveling it down an escalator. So it stays in this position, just like a person on the escalator. It's just sliding down. And you slide down until you find that opening right here. So stretching front of the hip in this one. Now you can keep your hands here, or if you want to be fancy, you can reach those arms up. Try to fully extend them. So engage the triceps. It's often common that this happens, and if you have tight shoulders, that's going to happen, or existing shoulder issues, that's okay. Keep your arms forward or bent, but if you can, draw them to the back of the ear. Exhale, sweep those arms down. Slide that leg back, and then slide the opposite leg forward. So stepping that left foot forward, use your stilts or not your stilts, and then slowly walking yourself up. Front knees over front ankle, pelvis, neutral, slide it down the escalator. So again, I'm not going that far, but you can tell that my hip flexor is in an extended position. It is not flexed. We spend most of the day seated. So our hip flexors get weak and they get tight. So it's important that we do this. Hip flexors can sometimes adversely impact the back. So if you have really weak or really tight hip flexors, sometimes it may manifest in your low back or it may manifest in your knees. And obviously we don't want that. Optional, add those arms. Inhale, reaching through the arms and spine. Exhale, sinking through those hips. Exhaling, sweeping those arms down, sliding that leg back into an all fours position. Then, taking that right foot forward. Now, on this one, you're going to curl your back toes under and bring that back foot at an angle. So your heel, your back heel, your left heel, is closer to the back end of the mat than your left toes are. Now, your front knee is bent, your front knee is over your ankle. And this is where, if you're resting on the floor, you may be like, okay, where are we going? The block does help. We're going to take that right arm onto the thigh somewhere resting on that flesh and muscle over that femur. Now, what you're trying to do, which is hard to see, but hopefully you can feel, is you're trying to move the right side of your hip slightly forward, and you're really engaging this quadricep muscle in the back to help move that left hip back. Now you can be here. I'm going to stay here. You can be here if you want to come a little more upright. If this stance is just way too challenging, shorten your stance. Bring your feet close together. On the other hand, if it's not challenging enough, you can go as low as, and I'm not quite there, you can go as low as 90 degrees at that front knee. So you can really challenge yourself, or you can, cut yourself a break. If you feel comfortable reaching that left arm up. So you should feel a hip opening probably in the right side more than the left side. It's different. Now we're going to exhale that hand either down to our block or down to the floor. Pivot so that you can drop that knee down and slide that front leg back. And let's take a little break in child's pose before we move on. So again, find the type of child that works for you. Extend your arms, drape your arms by your side, prop your head up. And then coming back up to an all fours position. This time, stepping that left foot forward, curl the back toe under, drop the back foot, heel to arch alignment. So ideally, this front heel is drawing a line straight back into the arch of the other foot. And then letting that arm climb the leg, coming into, this is a modified right ankle pose. So you can be here, you can shorten your stance, or you can increase your stance, up to you. Remember that the right heel is a little closer to the short end of your mat than your toes, just a little bit. Exhale that hand down to the floor of your block, pivot, drop that back knee, slide that leg back, coming back to rest in child's pose. Coming back up to an all fours position. Use the blocks, or simply step your leg forward. Curl the back toes under, step the other leg forward. So coming into a forward fold, you want to keep a micro bend in your knee. You can rest your hands on blocks, on your shins, or on the floor. Inhale, heart forward, head forward. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, sweep those arms up, reach up through those fingertips. I did pretty good with the camera and landscape. I'm only cut off my upper arm. Exhale those arms down. Really grounding down through your feet. Again, now more than ever, really important to try to stay grounded. I don't know, it's one of those, you say it and it comes up on your Facebook feed, but I was talking about the grounding mats in one of the videos last week, and sure enough, I ended up with an advertisement for a grounding blanket on my Facebook feed. But you can literally ground yourself visualizing. Again, let your mind believe it, that it's growing really strong roots, just like the 100-year-old tree. Down into the floor, through your basement, into the earth. And then inhale, sweep those arms up. Exhale, sweep those arms down. Inhale, heart forward, head forward. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, sweep those arms up. Exhale those arms down. And just move through this. It's just a little modified flow. Not hip focused, but breathing focused. Hopefully it encourages you to maintain those deep inhales, those deep exhales. Also helps decompress the spine when you go into that forward fold. Hamstring stretch. And the next time you make it there, just holding it up in a mountain pose. From here, coming into a chair pose. So if you can, you're going to bring your big toe mounds together. Your heels do not touch, but the big toe mounds, ideally they do. Sometimes it's just not possible. If it's not possible, keep your feet hip distance apart. I'll turn this way so you can see what it looks like. So from here, you're going to try to maintain the integrity of your spine. Obviously, natural curve at your Sorry about that. I put the phone on Do Not Disturb and it didn't ring, but somehow a phone call still came through. So sinking into that chair pose. And coming up. And then one more time, trying the same thing, pulling those abdominals back toward the spine, sinking into chair. Modified, you can bring your hands in or your arms forward. And coming up. Now, if you're a little tipsy, you're going to want to take yourself next to a wall and hold on to the wall. We're going to try a standing balance. Hip focus, we're going to try standing pigeon. So, again, I'll mirror you. Taking your right leg, and you're going to come into the same shape that you did earlier, that figure 4 stretch. Now from here, you're going to keep that foot flexed and sink down. Now, if you're feeling really strong, you can reach those arms. Now, I cannot, but some people can really sink far down into this pose. Some people can even put their hands to the floor or their blocks. So trying to find a focal point, something that's not moving that you can put your attention on. Coming up. And trying the other side. So, crossing that leg over the knee, flexing that foot, and sinking into that chair shape. It's almost like a one-legged chair. You've got your leg in that figure 4, standing pigeon. And coming out of that pose. And then inhale, sweeping those arms up. Exhale, sweeping those arms down. And coming back into an all-fours position. And you're going to want to have a pillow, a blanket, or a towel. So one of those things there. And I guess I will start off this way so that hopefully you can see what we're doing. Now, we're going to come into a traditional pigeon pose. Now, if you have existing knee issues, this will likely not be the pose for you. There is an upside down option that I'll show you as soon as we do this one. So just hang tight for 1 minute. If you're ready to embark on pigeon, you're going to take your knee up toward your wrist. Now, you want your thigh bone about parallel to the long end of your mat. And your front shin ends up at a diagonal. So that if you're looking at this from the front, your knee's in line with your hip. This thigh would be parallel to the long end of my mat if it was facing the other way. This shin is at a diagonal. My foot is pretty much close to being around my hip flexor area. Now, those of you who have open hips, you will be able to take that shin and move it forward so that it becomes more parallel to the short end of the mat. I can't do it, but some people definitely can. It all depends on, the anatomy of your hips. Now, the reason that you have a blanket is because right now your knee is somewhat supporting the weight of that hip because the hips don't have anything to rest on unless you're lucky enough to drop the hips to the floor. Most people can't do that while maintaining level hips. You don't want to tip to the side. You'll lose the hip hip stretch. You want to keep it level, like someone could put a little, tray of tea right here on your sacrum. Curl the back toe under, lift the hips, shake those hips down into place until you find a spot to rest on. So now the hip is supported, less stress for the knee. Take the shin further forward if you don't feel a stretch. And then you can come down into some version of sleeping pigeon if you want. Some people rest on their forearms. Some people stretch their arms out. Sometimes people put a pillow underneath. So holding it there if you made it into pigeon pose. For those of you who have existing knee issues, you're going to come into a supine position with your legs bent and your feet planted. And then from there, you're going to cross that leg over. So I'll flip around again so you can see me. Into a figure 4 shape. Flex the foot and externally rotate this inside leg. So it may be that the knee starts off sort of at a diagonal. If you're able to, gently encourage that leg out so that it's an external rotation. Then, from there, you're going to take your left knee up to your left shoulder. Now, if you're tight, you can use a belt, any belt will do, to come up to here. Some of you will be able to grab your hamstring, and some of you will be able to grab the front of your shin. Again, my hips tend to be tight, so for me to grab the front of my shin, then my chin goes way up and my head does this weird contorted thing. That is not advised. So you're either in regular pigeon or upside down pigeon. If you're in regular pigeon, you probably want to come up. Since we just got into upside down pigeon, stay there. But if you're in regular pigeon, using those arms, lifting that torso, sliding that leg back. Now, because we were just in major hip flexion, we want to go into hip extension. So maybe this is your pose. You come into an all fours position, and you just simply extend that leg. Some people may want to come into downward facing, lift the leg, even point the knee up to try to open the front of that hip. So it's up to you. You can do the all fours version, or you can do the three-legged dog version. Coming down out of that, and then getting yourself ready for pigeon on the other side. So it may be, sometimes people can do traditional pigeon, one side but not the other. Maybe there's one knee that's a little problematic for you. So you don't necessarily have to do the same hip stretch on both sides if you feel like you would like to try this. On the other hand, this may be the side that you go into that upside down pigeon. But bringing that left knee up to the left wrist so that your thigh bone is parallel to the long end of that mat. The shin is at a diagonal. Curl the toes under, lift the knee. Now that's because we want to help gravity out. Now gravity can really take hold of those hips and you can shake them down like a hammock. And then wherever you are, use a blanket to support the weight of the hips. It's like we're bringing the floor up if we can't reach the floor. And then coming down into sleeping pigeon if that's comfortable for you. So this is one of the most recommended poses for sciatica. If any of you suffer from sciatica, this is recommended because you're getting the hip stretch, but you're also getting, it may not be as apparent, but you are getting a tremendous spine stretch. And this is a position that you obviously don't generally do every day. So it is something that the body generally does appreciate. I'm going to say, Emily, if you're watching, she requested that we do a focus class because once you start doing these hip openers, if they're absent from your life for a little while, you notice, you just don't feel quite the same. They really are beneficial to knees and back. And then taking those hands back under the wrist, curl the toe under, and then coming into a front of the hip extension. So feel free, extend the leg back, or curl a toe under and come into three-legged dog, entirely up to you. And dropping it down. And now, we'll do one more pose and then we'll go into final relaxation. We've been going about 45 minutes. So, if you were participating, good job. Kelly and Dan, I hope you're making it to the end. So, taking that block and paralleling your feet. Lifting those hips and placing the block underneath your hips. Now you can do low orientation or you can do medium orientation. So whatever orientation suits you. You want to place the block right on that sort of solid part of your hips. Now again, your feet are planted. And this is not a hip flexor stretch like we did in our knee down crescent pose. But it's a hip flexor release. They don't have to work here. You're allowing gravity to take over those hips and sink into the block. You don't want any weight on your cervical spine. You want all the weight across your upper back. Of course, there's a little bit on the back of the skull, but predominantly upper back, hips, a little bit of feet. And then rooting down through your feet. Same as we did earlier when we were standing. Lift your hips just enough to slide the block out. Let the blocks fall to the mat. Now coming into a place for final relaxation. If you cannot lay supine, I would encourage you to put blocks under your feet, blankets under your knees, any of those sorts of things. But again, we're allowing ourselves to get grounded. Ideally, the palms are upward facing. The shoulders are in external rotation. That facilitates the opening of the chest, allowing the heads of those shoulders to fall back into the mat. Your legs are relaxed. Your torso is relaxed. Your arms are relaxed. Your face muscles are relaxed, smoothing the creases, relaxing the jaw. So feel free to stop the live stream, pause it if you're on replay, Or if you're ready to come out of final relaxation, slowly rolling to one side and lifting yourself up into a seated position. So thank you to those of you who took the opportunity to practice with me live today. I appreciate it. And I hope that those of you who are doing this on playback also enjoy it. And I hope to see all of my regulars face to face very, very soon. Please, comment, share, like, let us know how you're doing. We're still here. Okay, take care. Namaste.